Hello and welcome to the 2-Minute Warning. I'm your host, Perry Busby. The 2-Minute Warning is brought to you by the Westside Gazette. The Westside Gazette is Broward County's oldest Black-owned family newspaper. And joining me tonight is my co-host, Mr. Bobby Henry, the publisher of the Westside Gazette. Bobby, how you doing, my brother?
I am terrific and getting better. And yes, I don't have on a shirt, tie, nor suit today. This is a serious conversation that we need to have right now. And so we're going to do it. But I want to start off with, if I can, Perry, we're trying something different tonight. We're going to go live a little bit from Jacksonville, Florida. There's some history making being done in Jacksonville, Florida. And that is in celebration of Women's History Month. We are honored to have two outstanding ladies, it may be three, from the International Longshoremen, Southern Eastern Dock and Marine Council, their inaugural Women's Maritime Conference. Brothers and sisters, these are some strong sisters who carry a lot of weight, both on the docks and in the office. And tonight we have Miss Yvette Flowers. She's the Secretary and Treasurer. And Miss Shawn Snipes, she's a business agent. And they are both from the lovely city of Charleston, South Carolina. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You want to tell us a little bit about what is happening there in Jacksonville, Florida, in this historical making conference?
This weekend is the very first ILA Women's Conference. We are here celebrating the changes that ILA is transforming ILA and showing the world how many women that we have in our organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's basically what it is. We're here trying to educate our women and showcase the women of the ILA. Normally, this is a male-dominated industry, so this is the very first conference that we have had to include all the women from Maine to Texas.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to thank Brother Tony Hill for his efforts in always doing something to bring labor and the struggle together. Tony educated me on a little bit about the longshoremen, how back when they first started, how the name came about, men on shore. I may tell the story wrong, so won't y'all help me out and enlighten us on that, please?
Well, years ago, there were, it started with the slaves. I know in Charleston, they basically were the ones that doing the hard labor and doing the jobs that no one else wanted, all the hard working, moving cargo with bare hands and crazy tools from back in the day. It's just recently, maybe over the last 20 years, women have started becoming longshoremen. And I'm gonna take that back a little further. We are honoring one of our very first women. Her name is Linda Wilkins. She's from New Jersey, and she has been on the waterfront for 44 years. She may be retiring this year, I don't know, but she is the longest serving woman in the ILA that I know of.
Now you mentioned that the ladies are coming from everywhere. You said Texas,
from New York, New Jersey, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Florida, of course. Every port in the ILA is represented this weekend.
So are you ladies tying up ships too? Are you line handlers too?
Well, line handling is a different craft. It's not
Okay.
quite, we're not quite there. We're not quite there, but we're doing everything else. From crane operation to lashing, to driving trucks. We got a truck driver here and forklift operators, everything. Now, Miss Shanice Snipes is Charleston's very first woman delegate, business agent. So she is sitting in a historical spot. I am the second financial secretary of Local 1422. That's a woman. And I've been in office since 2009. So this is my 5th term. And this last term I ran unopposed. So, you know, we're doing everything in the ILA to make ILA even better. And it's so good that they are including the women and showcasing the women this weekend.
Yeah. If I, excuse me if I didn't hear it, but how many women make up ILA, and what's the breakdown? Is it predominantly women of color? And how, I'll let you answer that, then if we have a second question.
Well, I can speak for my local. It is a vastly male-dominated industry, but within our local, there are 88 active members, and we have approximately 300 people that are affiliated with the local that have not committed to full membership as of yet. They are still longshore women, and we embrace them all.
And how many in the local?
Okay.
In the local,
our membership is around right up under 900, but we have a workforce of over 3,000.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And how does a young woman get interested? Or
well,
what is you here?
I will say this: I am standing on the shoulders of those that came before me. I'm 3rd generation. My father and my grandfather were longshoremen. Yvette, I believe you're.
I'm 2nd generation. My father was a ILA president in the Port of Charleston, and sitting to our right is my daughter, who is a 3rd generation. Her name is Devetta Robinson. She's a 3rd generation longshoreman. She drives trucks. She lashes cars. She works on the car boat. Whatever jobs that they need to do. You know, women are just doing everything nowadays.
You know, this is certainly amazing. I can't see your daughter, but we here in Broward County, the ILA, I think it's 15. What's our local 15? I can't remember. But we can't see her. She's hiding. But our ladies made history too. There she
my
is.
3rd generation.
Okay, very good. Congratulations. You know, all right. We had one of the first women crane operators here too at the Port Everglades from the ILA. So we know just a little bit about it. But we want to congratulate. My tongue is tied. We want to congratulate you, ladies. There are things, Jill. Jill Kennedy just told me it's local 1526 here in Fort Lauderdale. And Jill just gave me the information. Art is her brother, who's also a longshoreman. So we have a strong relationship with the ILA here. So yeah.
We have almost 400 women here at this conference, and this is our very first venture. The South Atlantic and Gulf Coast District put this on, and we have to thank our president of our dock marine, which is Vincent Cameron, for doing this for us, as well as our international president, Harold Daggett, and Vice President Dennis Daggett, for allowing us to have this event.
Okay. Well, you guys got to come on down to Fort Lauderdale. We got a very friendly atmosphere for ILA and Broward County and the ports. So I met those dagons down here at President Johnny Dixon's inaugural reception. So it's wide open. Come on down to Fort Lauderdale and let's hold our Convention and Visitors Bureau accountable to bringing diversity in. So come on down and hold them accountable. And ladies,
Well,
y'all keep pulling the rope, why don't you?
well, we definitely don't mind coming to Fort Lauderdale. I personally know Johnny Dixon. He's doing a great job. I congratulated him on his win as president. So, you know, that's the next step. ILA is not, they do not have women in the upper echelon of leadership. So who knows? One day there may be a woman president in the ILA. You never know. But that's definitely a position that one of these females at this convention may be one day.
Okay. Okay. And Claudette Perry just said more Black super women. And also, I just got a text from former president down in Miami, Ellis Canty. He told me to tell y'all hello and congratulations.
Ellis Canty. Okay. I know
Ellis
him
Canty.
too, so I'll tell him I said hello.
I will. That was my roommate in college.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, ladies,
This has
you guys
definitely been a very nice surprise to us today.
Yes. And we thank you for the opportunity for being able to speak with you. Just to give you an idea of how women place in this industry and how we are impacting things for the betterment of all.
shake them up, sisters. Shake them up.
Thank you.
There is definitely more to come.
Okay. Well, we hope to be able to cover it and have you guys down here and have you on live again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brad.
All right.
Thank you, Frat. Okay.
Okay, man, that was wonderful. Yeah. Growing up in a port city, Beaumont is a port city, and having a longshoreman there, it's something very foreign to us, and very glad to see them expand and continue to make sure that diversity is there in at every level of the organization. So I really salute them. That is great information.
Yeah, in celebration of Women's History Month. So let's.
Yeah. Okay, so where we go now, guy?
Well, let's bring it on. What we come here for? We came to talk a little bit about where we headed at with the in this election process. So are we ready to vote? That's the question.
Yeah, that's a great question. We've got some wonderful guests tonight to help answer that, because I know as much as I try to cover voting and be involved with voting, that is a prescient question that I have. Are we ready to vote? So let's hear what some people who are involved on the front line have to say about this.
Okay,
you want to bring it on? Huh?
If I can jump in here, let me do this. Since the Black press is celebrating 195 years of being in existence this month, and one of our guests is a publisher, Miss Shirley James of the Savannah Tribune. If we can bring her on. Okay. Hello, Miss James.
Hello, how's everyone tonight?
Just fine. How are you?
Yes.
Well, I'm okay, but I'm like you are. Got to find out, and we're planning to see if we're ready to vote, because this is such a critical year this year. And, I'm in Savannah, Georgia, in the state of Georgia, and we are already trying to get our collaborations together with different organizations so that we can hit the ground running. And just like in Florida, but our Senate Bill 202 puts a very, very big obstacle in our way. And in fact, when we had the last election in November, I did something just to test out the new process for the absentee ballot. First of all, there's a whole new application process in the state of Georgia now. And even though at that time you did not have to have an excuse to cast an absentee ballot, there's now a bill in the state legislature to try and change that as well. But just to tell you a little bit about the experience that I had, I went ahead and put my application in. Of course, I got it back, but I wanted to test out the ballot box, the drop box in Chatham County, which we are a heavily Democratic county here. And we were allowed to have 2 drop boxes in Chatham County. Most counties in the state had 1. Maybe up in Gwinnett and Fulton County, they had 2 like we do. So I went to the only place where I could get to, which was our Board of Elections, to submit my absentee ballot and put it in the drop box. Well, when I got to the building, and you would think beforehand the drop box was always on the outside of the building. Now it has to be inside. It's only available between the hours of 8 to 5 p.m. That's for Chatham County. Some other counties only from 9 to 5 p.m. So you think about persons who have certain disabilities. If you are submitting your absentee ballot, you have to do it in person unless you have a medical excuse, unless there's someone who is a member of your family, and they list who these persons are a caregiver, but still it has to be because of a medical reason that those persons can submit that absentee ballot for you. So when I got there, I'm thinking that the box will be very accessible to me in the lobby area of the building. Well, it was not. I had to go in the building. It took me about 30 to 40 footsteps to get to the ballot, to that drop box, which was in the same location where our regular voting machines are when we do early voting. Now think about it.
Hold that point right there. Hold that point.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's engage this. Let's bring. Go ahead, Perry.
Yeah. No. And it's great to hear, because what's happening in Georgia, we know that there's a mirror of that happening in some regard to other cities. Now, wanted to let Ms. James complete, because we have another guest that we want to bring on to talk about this from a Texas perspective. And so, Ms. James, do you want to complete that, or can we just bring on our other guests?
You can bring her on, but I do want to let you know that I wear several hats.
Okay.
I'm one of the coordinators for Black Voters Matter in this
right.
area.
Right. And we want to bring all of that in. I'm glad, because we want to have that conversation.
But when I looked at Texas, I said, "Oh my gosh, Texas and Georgia are twins."
Right.
Yeah.
No, and don't forget Florida. We'll triple it in this. But but I do want to bring on Sharon Berry. Sharon is the Democratic chair in Houston County. Now, not Houston. Houston, the city, is in Harris County. Houston County is in East Texas, and it's comprised up of more rural areas. But what most people don't know is that East Texas is home to well over 2 million Blacks, and Sharon can give you. I'm hoping she'll give us some detail on that. But Sharon, please introduce yourself and let us know about the county and what you guys are dealing with, because I hear they're still counting ballots in Harris County.
Yes. Good evening, and I'm so glad to be with you guys. My name is Sharon Berry, and I am the county chair for Houston County, which is the oldest county in the state of Texas. I'm about 90 miles outside of Harris County, which is Houston, and surprisingly, I get so much information in mail from Houston because I'm Houston County. Now, East Texas is about 35 counties, and my particular Senate district, which is 3, we have 15 counties. But what's interesting about where I'm from, there are 25 Black county chairs in the entire state of Texas, and 18 of us are in East Texas. Now, that's important because we don't have congressmen, senators, state reps that look like me. So when you talk to the Blacks that are in East Texas, it only, we do have county commissioners, a few, but the face that they know as being an elected official is their county chairs. Now, again, that's important because we don't get funded. We don't, we're not included in a lot of the decisions because as Perry said earlier, they don't seem to think rural Texas matters, and we vote. And the people, we're having the same issues, of course, with the absentee ballot by mail. I spoke with the county chair for Fort Bend County. She said 50% of their ballots had been returned, about 40% in Harris County. And the Black chairs, we get together regularly and talk about what's happening in our particular counties. And what I stress to them is what's happening to us is a direct result of them trying to stop, halt Harris County. And it's bothering, and it's affecting East Texas tremendously. The question is, are we ready to vote? Absolutely, we're ready to vote, but we don't vote because for whatever reason, people, they tell you from 18 to 80. Why? It doesn't matter, Sharon. Nobody listens to us. Nobody comes. What I tell, this is my 3rd term as county chair. I was also the vice chair for the Texas Coalition of Black Democrats. And so I got to travel all over the state. And there's the same story. We have enough registered voters today, right in Texas today, to win any election, any statewide election. So why haven't we? Why don't we? Because, and I'm telling you from Sharon Berry's perspective, East Texas, it's who we have out front. It's who's leading us. And people don't come. I have to get politicians. I mean, I really have to get ugly because I tell Houston County, if they don't respect you enough to come and ask for your vote, they don't get your vote. If they don't respect you enough to reach out to your county chair and say, Sharon, what are your issues? What do you need? How can we help you? Then why am I out there beating the streets? I mean, people have died for this right to vote. I used to have, I bought like voting is not a spectator sport, just any and everything to get the message to people how important it is. When I was elected, Congressman Jim Turner and his wife, we were at a meeting. I'm retired military. My husband and I both. We were in Keller. Oh, excuse me. My German Shepherd is outside. Ma'am, excuse me. No,
Welcome
please
to
don't pet
rural
him.
Texas.
Yeah, I don't go anywhere without my German Shepherd. And so I stopped in the Walmart parking lot, and she's right there. And when she lifts her hair on her back, that means she's about to attack. And these people were coming. And so Good. So she's
Well, you
yes.
only on the 2-minute warning. Can you get a real live action? Let me not let my dog bite you in the ass moment, okay?
Harry, you didn't tell me this, man. Sure.
I go nowhere with I don't travel anywhere without Breeze. But let's go back to voting. I mean, my husband and I lived in DFW, Keller, Tarrant County for 13 years, raised kids. I bought a home, and I'm originally from Louisiana. And and I know racism, but I tell you, it's a different monster in the state of Texas. It's truly, truly different.
I'm
But when
sure
I
Miss
took this
James could have something to
position,
say.
I said to them, I wouldn't put forth a ballot without a candidate on it. That happens in rural Texas all the time. That's why we're red. If you would see how many counties are putting forth ballots, no, not one Democratic candidate on it. The Republicans this year went down to South Texas. They took funding and they paid the fees for over 120 people to be on the ballot. What an idea. Ted Cruz came here last month, and in his speech, he said, all I'm going to do is go around and help out the down ballot candidates. What a novel idea. What would if Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi said, look, let's go to Texas, Georgia, let's help people raise money. Because you gotta understand, a county chair doesn't get a nickel from anybody until we run the primary. And then whatever your budget, you get a percentage of that budget.
Okay,
Well, if you haven't,
Sharon,
I'm sorry,
let's put a pin in that one, and let's bring this conversation.
back
Uh,
to voting.
yeah, I mean to voting. And Miss James, when is your primary coming up? When is the Georgia primary?
Our Georgia primary is going to be in May.
In May.
In May. And there's a lot of down ballot voting, school board positions.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that all of the redistricting lines have been drawn in such a way, we call them snakes, that they really have diluted the Black vote. In Chatham County, Fulton, Gwinnett, I'm trying to remember Richmond County, where Augusta is, and Muskogee County, which is where Columbus, Georgia. We are the heavy Democrat voting districts. So you know that they have done what they needed to do to dilute our votes with the redistricting. And so even though it has gone, there have been suits that have been filed and it's gone to court, right now the judgment is that it's too close to the the primary for any changes to be made, so that the redistricting lines that were drawn and they did it behind our backs, even though they had these public forums and we all got to talk, but they still, when it was time to put those lines together and draw them, they did that behind the scene. There was, just nothing at all that we were able to see, and not even our Democratic legislators who are in the state house, they didn't see them either. So the primary is in May, and then we're going to have, of course, the election in September. So what we're doing now, and not only with the Savannah Tribune, I wear that hat, but I also wear the other hat with Black Voters Matter. I'm one of the coordinators in Chatham County for that. And so what we're doing now is, between Black Voters Matter, we're working with the League of Women Voters of Coastal Georgia. We're working with our Divine Nine and other organizations. We're all now, there's going to be a meeting. We are collaborating. We have a meeting set up for Saturday morning. And so we're trying to put all these forces together. And then just, we have to we have to put the boots on the ground and get out there. But like Sharon said, a lot of what happens in Chatham County, we have more African Americans registered to vote than any other ethnic group. But when it comes to time to vote, we're not voting. We're not voting. Black Voters Matter, I must say, has increased the turnout. Right now, we're doing what we're calling mind issue calling. So what we're doing is just calling across the state of Georgia, and we're just calling voters and not talking so much about voting right now, but we're just trying to find out how they are feeling. What kinds of things are you concerned about? And then that's a kind of segue. It's just, it's like, what thing I like about Black Voters Matter is that we try to stay in contact with our voters 12 months out of the year. 12 months out of the year, so that when the time comes for voting, they know who we are. And even though we're nonpartisan, we still have a little more leeway in reference to having that person to get out to vote, because we've asked you, what are the issues, and then we kind of put those 4 or 5 things out that Chatham County persons are concerned about. Now we're going to publish that and get that information out to you. So if this is what you're concerned about, then here is how you can do something about it. You do have to look at these candidates. You got to make them accountable. That's who you vote for, because they're the ones who are making the decisions about what impacts you and your children, et cetera, et cetera. So we're trying to do that, but we're ready to get out there and get the vote. But it's the same kind of situation, because a lot of the people that you see who are in position to make decisions, and especially at the congressional level, for us, we're District 1, Congressional District 1, and that's been tied into a Republican for almost all of the time that I've been here in Savannah. And my husband and I have been here 50 years.
Wow.
And so he doesn't have, we have persons running against him. But the way that the district is drawn, it's still, you're getting to the politician choosing the voter, as opposed to the voter choosing the politician. But what we're trying to do, and one little thing that we're trying to do right now during Women's History Month, is to try to incentivize even women, because we do vote in larger numbers than our men do.
Right.
But one of the persons that we have promoted in this week's paper is a lady by the name of Mamie George Williams. She was a suffragette out of Savannah, born and bred here. She was a member of Lincoln's Republican Party, Lincoln's Party. But that woman got over 40,000 women throughout Georgia to register to vote. And she got so many, and even when Black women couldn't vote, and this was before the 19th Amendment, but she got so many what they called colored Black women out, even though they couldn't vote, that the governor had to stop voter registration for all women, period, in the state of Georgia. This was in about 1940. Okay. So what we're trying to do is to let Mamie George Williams' name now. We're trying to promote her as a person that can incentivize women, because we're saying if she could do that back in the 1920s, 30s, then the times were about the same as they are now. So why can't we?
Yeah.
They even called her the Esther of her time. If you go back in the Bible,
Such a time.
such a time as this.
Yeah.
So we're trying to put together some different kinds of programming and get into our community and just see if we can incentivize our women to be, we have to be the Esthers of our time. I mean, got to be that,
Right.
So that's one thing that we're doing. And so these other organizations they're on board with us, and we're just going to do what we can, that's just one thing. But there are going to be several other things.
Right.
But Black Voters Matter has a wonderful program. I don't know if you all are in the state of Texas. I think that Black Voters Matter is just getting into Texas.
Yes.
But if you have not, it's a wonderful.
Just getting here.
Yeah, and I do want to ask that because both of you alluded to how Republicans are strategically uh, moving through the state as well as interstate. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
from both of your perspectives, what has been the collaboration across state among us as blacks to understand? Because this is a university issue. And I understand we talk about 208 in Georgia or the House bill here or whatever that number is in Texas. But the common denominator is it's still us. And so what are we doing that we're seeing across states that we're kind of sharing? I know Black Voters Matter is one of the first groups, but is that really where we are? That's the only group that's sort of sharing ideas across states?
For me, Black Voters Matter. It hasn't made it quite yet to East
Mm-hmm.
Texas. So what we're doing is trying to go back through the church because there was a time when blacks basically, we didn't get directions on who to vote for, but we got the information that there was an election. We have 3 or 4 candidates, and there are polling locations. Well, now we don't have that segment anymore. So, Reverend Steve Miller, and some other people, they're trying to ignite the ministerial alliances and the religious sector to get back into, for lack of a better term, back into politics and to help get the word out. Because I can tell you for East Texas, it's truly about educating the voter. We still have people who don't understand the difference between primary and general election. We have people who don't understand. I shared with Terry um, the week before the primary, and in my county was probably the first time we got to completely control the equipment or the machines for the voting process. And it's strictly, it frightened the living whatever out of most of my workers to the point that they quit. So that in itself tells me you don't understand the process and how important voting is. So education. The day before election, I had people with college degrees calling and asking me about candidates and things of that sort that they should have known, or at least in my opinion, they should have known. I have the countywide. Nobody sends me signs. If I get signs, I have to pay for it. So it's educating and aware and making people aware. Once we do that, I do think people will start back voting. My for my precinct chairs, I tell them each voter is an individual. You have so one, you've got to understand the process and know what the issues are. Because if you meet an 18-year-old, what's important to that 18-year-old? And you have 9 seconds to get that out there to make a difference. You meet the school teacher, the professional worker. What do you think is important to them? And see, that's my job as a county chair. I've got to get people in place and I've got to get the information to them. But if there's no connection between the party, me, the precinct chairs, and then the ultimate voter, which is where the void is.
Okay. I'll
There's
back
no,
up for
no
you.
message.
Yeah.
I'm gonna back up
Mr.
for a minute.
James?
If,
Okay.
if you could, can you put that question back on the screen from Ms. Perry? And also, somebody just texted me and asked a question. Is that Black voters? What was it, the Black voters? Are they here in Florida? Is that organization here in Florida? That's that question. Now, Ms. Perry asked a question. She said, "It's always," well, she made a statement. "It's always been difficult for Black people. No excuses. The evidence shows that when Black people vote, we win elections. Those in various counties who have their ear of the Black community." Now, what Perry, you and I discussed this. We can ask for help to engage in this voting process, but if we don't put people in their right positions, then we're defeating the cause. And I think, Perry, you made the point that you're not going to go out and knock on no doors. Your special, you collect data. Who do we have collecting data for us to use in these different organizations or different attacks on getting this issue solved? I hear everybody's doing something over here. Everybody's doing something over here. Who's bringing all of these collectives together? And let's come up with one strategic plan. Is that happening in Georgia?
Well, okay, am I muted? Am I muted?
No.
Okay. I wouldn't tell you that there's one particular organization that's pulling it all together. But again, I go back to some of the things that I've experienced with Black Voters Matter. Like, for instance, when we had the November election, they had, and we would have training meetings and calls, almost every week leading up to an election, and even so many months prior to. But the statistics that we get is wonderful. I mean, like the last election, I worked specifically for House District 165, even though it was nonpartisan. And a friend of mine was running for that particular seat and won. But I had the statistics in reference to the number of African American males, African American females who voted in the last election, the number who were registered to vote, the ones who did not vote. And so those were the ones that we were supposed to target. And the one good thing about Black Voters Matter is that there are funds available. There are grant funds available that you can actually, instead of, like they say, we can't volunteer our lives away. So you can pay. I have a group of core students at Savannah State University who do phone banking. They get paid. I have another group that have some young people. These are some youth organizations. They do the kind of door to door and passing out, what we call, leaflets and things of that nature. They get paid for it. And so some of it has to do, most of it is with educating our voters and keeping in contact with them through the phone. COVID did a job to us, but look what we did in Georgia with COVID. We elected two senators.
In many ways, COVID was a blessing.
COVID was a blessing, but that's now what caused S Bill 202 and all these other things now, because we followed the rules that the Republicans put together, and we voted and we did what we had to do. So now they're changing the rules on us. But
Ms. James, let me ask you a question. I'm sorry. Do you all have the a system called the Voter Activation Network, the VAN? Do you all have a VAN?
Yes.
A VAN?
Yes.
Okay.
And a VAT?
Yep, we have the VAN. We do have that. And we get trained on how to use it. So there are some strategies, or there's information out there that we can use, but it's like you say, it's like trying to collaborate and coordinate, and we just we do it locally. That's where we have to start. But nationwide and statewide, and even region-wide, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, all the way over to Texas, we need a plan, some kind of way, that because we're all faced with the same problem.
Exactly.
If I can say this now, this came from a newspaper in Dallas. It says primaries are over. They're not really, as some head into a runoff. And just think, Texas will never be a Georgia, voting at 4.5%.
I didn't quite hear that now, Bob.
Okay, I'm sorry. what the article was saying, that even though it came from the Metro News in Dallas, and it says primaries are over. Um, well, not really, as some head into a runoff. And just think, Texas will never be a Georgia voting at 4.5%.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The efforts that's done in what's done in Georgia needs to be duplicated throughout this, like you said, this region, this area. Because evidently you guys have found something that works.
Well, can I put a caveat in that?
Yeah, some of it started.
works.
Yeah, some of it started back with Stacey Abrams before she was a candidate, in reference to what she did,
Right.
boots on the ground with getting persons registered to vote.
Right.
She got them registered, and then we had a base. We had something to work with.
Mm-hmm.
We had something to work with, because even at the November elections, you'd be surprised, even though statewide we may not have won a lot of seats and things of that nature, but in a lot of the rural countries in areas in Georgia where Black Voters Matter went, there was a turnover, and there were more positive kinds of election results for our people in small rural areas. But it had to do with the educating of the voters, and then making that contact and helping them to understand. So Sharon, that is one of the major problems that we have, is just educating and helping them to understand that that there's power in their vote. There's power in it.
Yeah. And Ms. James, that I agree, because as Sharon alluded to earlier, I think a lot of what we deal with is the misconception that what we think are the basics of voting are the basics for an educated voter, not just for any voter.
Right.
And as I'm starting to understand this, we're saying things that sound simple to us, but to people who don't engage, it is a foreign language, even though they understand every word we're saying.
Right. You have to bring it home to them so that you can help them to see, even if it's just one thing that concerns them, or an issue that they have never seen addressed before. We have to help them to understand that there's a relationship between this issue that you have and this person over here who's in this seat, whether it's a council seat, a county seat, at the state level or whatever. Now, if you see that name on the ballot again, do you know how that person, what that person does, and how that person, what they do, affects what you're concerned about?
Yeah.
That's,
Go ahead, Sharon.
I was going to say, if we had, Miss James was pointing out how they compensate phone bankers. If we had that capability in East Texas, especially in my county, where I could pay younger people to go and just do some basic things, because you got to understand, in East Texas and rural Texas, because economic development in some places non-existent. When you have a median income of $12,000 to $18,000 a year, people can't afford to volunteer. They can't afford, you can't pay childcare, on volunteer wages. So if education, if we could compensate our younger people, because that would really move a lot for the younger generation, to get them involved. I mean, to put something in their hand that they could put on a car, or put on a door knob. At some point in time, they'll read it. And when we make it relevant to their situation and how it helps you, like, the JP, we need to, make sure we put the right person. This is the guy who sets those fines that you think are so ridiculous when you do A, B, and C. And they don't know that. but educating our voters in my 3 terms, I have seen that if we can get that, if we can even just move the needle a little bit on that, I think we would get people out to vote. Because I tell my county and everybody, registering voters is an everyday, every month thing. We don't need a special month. We don't need to have a special time. Voter registration should be nonstop.
Right.
But see how they combat that? They make sure you have to be a deputy voter register. Or they put obstacles in your way. And we just gotta, we just gotta combat them.
I have a question. I'm not the most educated person when it comes to election laws or campaign violations and rules. But what is it to prevent, or is there a rule that says a candidate cannot take funds that are raised, when you go out and have your fundraisers, and then use some of that money to pay for the workers that you need to get you what you need to get the voters out? Does that make any sense? I mean, am I too far off base? You out here you running, and you're raising money. Your money goes there. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that we need people to do the work. So why not pay the people?
Yeah.
Or somebody taking all the money.
Well, no. I mean, just as Mr. James and Ms. Berry have talked about the other dynamics of voting, let me just say, I come to voting from a different perspective, and I come from data. I don't look at people; I just look at data, and I observe operations. When I first started getting involved with congressional races, and this was back in the 90s in Houston, I was amazed at how chaotic even our candidates' offices are run. I'm serious, and this was back in the 90s, and again, but it carries forward. What I've seen and what is evident is a lack of information sharing. Go to any campaign, and I tell you, there is everybody jockeying for a position to say this is going to be the most important thing that's going to win for this candidate. And the candidate is being tossed to and fro. All they're being told is, let's go here, let's talk here, let's raise money here. It is the reality. It forced me to create an application called the campaign management system. Used it for a couple of campaigns to help candidates. They used it, but they weren't trying to have anybody sit down and enter data and tell them what was going on every day in their campaign. And this is what our Republican counterparts are doing. They're micro-targeting, and all we're trying to do now is do a big, broad message. 2020 gave some perfect results, but we all know 2020 had some other intangibles that don't exist anymore. To do a push on vote by mail at this point now, I think you're not going to get those same results that you saw in 2020 because the same intangibles are not there. In fact, you got different obstacles. So what are we doing different? And I'm asking groups, and I'll be very honest, this is why Bobby and I are inviting groups to come here. We need to understand, because for me as a data person, I don't understand how these dots are connected.
Okay, see, you coming from data. I'm talking about where's the money.
But Bobby, if we don't,
we need people. If we're talking about, we need people to knock on doors. We need people to do this.
That's where Bobby.
See, I don't know. I get.
Okay, right, but that's what I'm saying.
Let me answer that.
Okay, I'm saying we also need to change our approaches. We have become like Pavlov's dog. When it's voting time, we do the same thing over and over. One person learns one new thing. It's what we're going to do. But everything that we do, stepping away, everything that we do pushes people to the poll. And one thing I'm going to ask each of you is, how do you know your success? What are you basing it on? The final vote? Because that's somebody else's number. That's not your number. We're doing all the work and we're counting on a flawed system to tell us how successful we are. And we don't know how to even combat it. Combating it legally is one thing, but we don't have proof points along the way. We touching people, getting them there. And then we hold our eye, we wait and see what the results are going to be. We have more work. And what I do as a data scientist is we cover what we call the last mile. If we're bringing people to the poll and people are voting, and then we wait to see a result, there's a gap that we aren't covering. So since we have minimal volunteers, and I keep telling candidates, why do you put people out there to push a card? But then when you ask them how many people showed up, it's been a steady day. That's not numbers. Elections are about numbers, not good feelings, and not about what we see. And if we aren't taking numbers, those numbers are still being recorded and they're being divvied up however we see. We talk about voter suppression, yet we don't even try to get a tally of how many people we saw go to a voting place and leave without voting. We're waiting on them to call the 800 number and do something. That's going to be a fraction of your people. So let's bring in some other people who see what happens in elections, and let's make this holistic, because if all we're going to do is do the same thing over and again because that's what we think voting is, we're going to get haphazard results. And we're really going to get establishment candidates regardless. Because regardless of if this is blue or red, establishment candidates are coming in the favorites. And this is what we got to understand about voting, because that is what the numbers tell us. Not bottom line results. We have to start working and really monitoring our work. You can't have a sales, you can't have sales and only justify sales about how much I made at the end of each month. That's not what you do as a business person. You analyze, what sector am I not targeting? What am I doing? We have these, and you have the vans. When we include the vans, we're including people on a system. And again, coming from the IT sector, Lord, I know how it is to work with users. And now we're working with a user with a system they've never seen before. And as Shirley said, you're going to get some training, but you got to hope that you're going to get the right person to extrapolate the right data. They're going to give you some basic reports about how to walk a neighborhood, about how to see how many voters aren't there. But there's so much other data that we're not asking. And like they say, if you don't know what to ask, how do you know what to ask? We've got to bring, and what Bobby was saying about me saying, I'm not a person that's going to knock on doors. I want to help you. Knocking on doors is not the best of my skill. I need to know how to give these organizations the best of my skill for what they're doing so that they can reimagine how we approach data. We're putting in a lot of effort. We put in a lot of effort to get people there. And we know that we're dealing with a faulty system that splices and dices our voters, sometimes even before they even get a chance. Mm-hmm. And we can't just say it's suppression. Let's put a number to suppression. Let's put numbers and faces to it. These are our people. And that's what I'm saying. What are we doing? We can't do this the same way over and over, expecting a different result and saying, well, no, really, our result got to be more work. More work does not produce best results.
Okay. I want to piggyback off of that. Everything you said, Perry, how do we get that data? How do we know what's working and what's not? You get that from a county chair who does this every day. But if you have a candidate, okay, this is where the system is broken for me in Texas. You'll get a candidate. They will choose their team. That team will then normally reach out to somebody in Texas, normally a friend or somebody they went to a course with. They make that person regional director, political director for that team. Then that person would choose one or two, three people. Okay, let's stick with East Texas. If I want to get information from East Texas, I'm going to an East Texas chair. When you appoint somebody that I don't know, the chairs don't know, have never been in my county, but all of a sudden you're the voice for me to that candidate of what I need or what I don't need. Right then and there, you have closed off every county chair. You have ticked them off. They're activists because they know, I know my strong neighborhood. I know where, you know what, you're wasting your time. Just put a couple of pamphlets out, move on. But if we want to change the dial, you got to come in this precinct. You got to give me money. And they don't do that. They don't do that across Texas. I'm just going to stick with East Texas because I've talked to those people. I know those people. And they do this every time. And as I'm saying it to you, I say it to the Texas Democratic Party. I tell it to candidates. I say, if you want to really not get any results, because the other part of that is you have let's stick with mine, East Texas, Houston County. You bring somebody in Houston County, first thing I'll say, have you talked to my chair? Have you talked to the county chair? Because one, they believe me. They trust me. They know I'm out there working. All of a sudden, you have backdoored me and you've come in my county to get some information, and they're not going to talk to you. They're not going to talk to you. And that's going to spread like wildfire from county to county. And that's where we are in Texas. I can name you 6 campaigns that are doing that right now, sending somebody in my county to do, well, she said all of Texas. You're right. They're doing that.
All of Texas.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And they don't get it. And I have said this over and over. You get these people, you put them on a salary, you want to send them to my county to tell me what's best for me. And I can tell you, I mean, I use the van, minimum, because I can't do everything myself. But if I had 3 young people that I could put on 8-hour shifts or 6-hour shifts and tell them, I need you to do A, B, and C. I have the older generation that I can put that list in front of them and tell them to call until they're blue in the face. They'll do it. They'll make the notations, but they're not going to get back on the computer. So then I need to get that back to these computer literate people who do it. But it takes money. It takes time. And I don't have that. And my dues are minimum. I don't beg my people for money. But what I have told my party, and I'll pass this to everybody, if you got a candidate that's really good at raising funds, and if he comes to my county and raise $50,000, $60,000, you should leave 10% of that with me. So I can do what he needs me to do or what you do. For some reason that falls on deaf ears.
Right. Yeah.
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
My husband and I carry this county from my checkbook. And I do it out of love. So when people from the state or somebody else ask me for money, I say, hey, I'm giving you money right now. I'm helping you. But that's the disconnect with what Bobby was asking for. There, and this happens every election. They come in and they always put these paid staffers out in these key positions. They hire their friends, and then their friends hire their friends. But that's supposed to be the person to come in my county and tell me what's best for me.
Right. No, and
Education.
again, I think most people don't understand what happens in elections, and that's why I think this is so important, because most people don't understand what happens in the, even from the statewide election. I mean, all of this is really new to me.
Bring back up that comment from Pat Bryan. Bring that comment back. And y'all, we really with what is really okay. We have to go back to and revisit what we did after the passage of the Voting Rights Act. We have to elect people who represent our interests over the special interest group. Right now, many of our elected are bought, and let's deal with it for what it is. And Perry, and Miss Berry and Miss James, everything you're saying is absolutely correct. So, okay, it is the grassroots efforts that's going to put us where we need to be. How do we get to the grassroots? I mean, that and you've answered some things, but we need to concentrate on bringing those people who have been disenfranchised by us, those of us who think we know it all. And so we, how do we do that? Out of love, under education, we have been right now, Broward County, District 20 or whatever, we are subjected to special elections. Then we got another election. Then we got another election. To the uneducated voter, we don't know what the hell is going on when we come out to vote. And who's telling us? Nobody is telling us. We try. We get the information late, or because some senator says they're going to talk to the black press and it never happens. So we find ourselves at a disadvantage created by us. So
I think in some of what we have lost in our communities, and you talk about getting back to the grassroots, our ministerial alliances are not what they used to be. And some of that happened. You got to go back and think about when certain laws were put in place nationally. I think it was under one of the Bush presidents, where churches and places of worship could apply for certain federal grants, but they were restricted. If they got those grants, that's when you notice that in our churches, we had to stop what we had traditionally been doing, and that is educating our congregations, keeping us abreast of what was happening politically. That's how we had success during the civil rights movement and all of that, because that was a form of educating and communicating and directing and telling our people how and what to do. So we started losing ground then. And you don't have that same kind of unity and collaboration anymore, really, among some of our ministers in our various places. I don't know whether that's happening with you, but you have mega churches here, and you got different kinds of churches that have community organizations, community programs here, and they're getting this money, and they're still, we're not unified. That's one of the things. And then another is that I'm not sure that our people from the grassroots level and on up have that confidence that there's a trusted person in the community, or persons that they will listen to and that they will respect enough to have conversation with.
Mhm.
So that's, that's another kind of obstacle, I think, that's kind of that's in our way. But I don't lose
And
hope about what we can do, because there are the Sharons out there, and who have made these connections. But like she said, she needs some support. She needs some support.
and you throw in everything you said. Throw in the local bubbles driving around in the trucks with the Confederate flags and
Oh,
threatening people. And I'll give you a little funny story. Like when we got up to go and vote, and my husband, I mean, he's so gone. He goes, I wish I do see somebody with an AR-15, because I mean, we're ready to confront those people in a lawful way. But if you don't have somebody at that polling place, I put security at my polling places because some of mine are way out in the boondocks, and I have older ladies who out there. I want them to work at that poll. I want them to feel secure. I want them to be comfortable. And so I make every effort to make sure my polling places are safe. Other county chairs don't do that. My white counterparts, they're a little apprehensive because people are threatening them. I mean, we're at some point in time, all of us have been threatened to some degree. You know what? And we handle it a different way. Well, my lighter skinned sisters aren't that confident. And so there's a lot of information that don't get to where it needs to be because of all the little games they play. And again, so it goes back to educating them, telling them what they can and cannot do. If this is happening to you, I need you to call me or call someone. They just feel like they're out there by themselves because, as I said, we have enough people on roll registered right now to win any statewide election in Texas.
mhm.
We have got to, whatever that brick wall that's there, that's preventing our voters from one, trusting us, believing us, and helping us. We got to knock it down. I always tell people, you meet people where they are. If you're on the other side of town, that the undesirable side of town or the undesirable neighborhood, and people are really anxious about going there, you know what? I go there. I just talk to them. I ask them, how did it get to this point? What happened that you stopped caring? And that was one of the first 40, I think 40, 45 people I registered. I just went out, I think it was like 10 o'clock at night. I put some cheap beer in my cooler, and I went to the park. And I had my iPad, and I said, now who isn't registered? When's the last time you voted? And so we talked about the elected officials. We talked about the disconnect, why I don't believe or I don't trust you. And then I went to the authorities and I said, we need to have a conversation where you need to put a chair out here in the park and talk to these people and find out what's happening. Because whether you're Democrat or Republican, once you are elected, you represent all of us, and we have to hold them accountable. And we don't, and we stopped holding ourselves accountable. And we, as the Black population, we will vote faster if somebody on the ballot looks like us. We'll get out there, we'll support them. But then when we stop believing in us, it goes back to why we put so and so in office. Look what they did. Things got worse. And that's what we're fighting among Black people. That's what we're fighting among Democrats.
And the other thing in reference to educating and helping our voters to understand too, is that even when they go out and support whoever the person is that looks like us, they have to understand that that person doesn't have the power to do everything.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes there are council members around. I mean, you go back and you even look at the presidency of President Obama. Well, everybody kind of say, well, he didn't do what he was supposed to do but it wasn't all him. You know, there was Congress, there were the U.S. representatives, there was the Senate. There was so much obstruction that he had to meet with. So, you know, we don't understand. And the other thing that we need to be aware of, and it's been happening for a long time. I don't know what is taught in the public schools in Texas or anywhere, but they stopped teaching civics in the public schools. So our people and people in general, I don't care, you know, what background, what race, what ethnicity they come from, they do not understand how the government operates. They don't understand. And that's something else that we have to sort of try and weave into what we do, is to help persons to understand the process. So it's that you can't hold, I mean, you hold elected person, the elected official accountable, but that one person can't do everything.
Right.
But we have to hold ourselves accountable too.
Well, true.
I mean, we have to go to school board meetings, city council meetings, commissioner meetings. I mean, you know, it's a two-way street. And at this point, see, we're not having honest conversations with ourselves. You know, we walked into this trap. I mean, sure, some people led us, but we walked willingly behind them. We didn't ask the right questions. We didn't hold people accountable. And then we want to complain. So we have to have an honest conversation with us.
All right.
You know, in order for
go ahead.
Go ahead. In order for us to begin to have honest conversations, we got to have a place to gather to have honest conversations.
Right.
You know, we have allowed places of gathering, wherever they may be, to be either gentrified or restrictions put upon it, and not finding a way to get around those restrictions, as we always have. We are just laying down and not talking, not having these discussions. And therefore, when we don't have discussions, I don't know what you're doing, Sister James, you know, and Perry, you know, I may disagree with what you're doing, but I don't have a chance to tell you, see how we can meet and make it happen. Mm-hmm. So we got to find a way for us to meet and have these discussions, and not allow made up things in our head to keep us apart.
Right. Yeah. And to piggyback on what you're saying, Bobby, because, and I know that last conversation I had about data kind of went crazy, but I sort of think about it in simple terms. And I try to ask simple questions. Do you know how the people around you voted? Do you know how many people around you voted? If we say voting, if we say politics is local, and we don't know the count or what's happening even in our local processing, I'm not even asking you to know what's going on in City Hall, but on your block, we have to that's us. And we have to accept the responsibility that leadership is a reflection of the people. It is. Either their inability or their apathy or whatever it is, it's going to show in your leadership.
I don't know, Perry, you just said something there, buddy. You said leadership is reflective of the people.
Right. We put them in place. But as you know, I say now, we don't have leaders. We have Negroes out front.
Thank you.
And that's what elections are. We end up with the folk out in front. We don't have leaders. And if you understand how voting works, we have leaders, We have folk who win when there's more opposition against them. And we say that's our leader, and you expect them to do something? Okay, we have primaries. And I know in Texas they have the 50% plus one, but we have in terms of candidates and even in some local resolutions where, hey, simple majority wins. Okay. So somebody wins with 44 and yet you got 65, 66 against you. I mean, or 56 against you.
Let's do this. This is we got the whole month to deal with this. This thing. So Miss James, y'all doing something right in Georgia.
Yeah.
It's something. Whatever it is, Georgia is on somebody's mind because y'all are doing something right. And whatever you're doing, can you bottle it up and send it to us? Can you put it in a manual for us to follow, and let's make this happen because y'all doing something. For Georgia to do what Georgia has done under the most one of the most racist system in this country, and now to come out ahead, and y'all sending white folks to prison for killing black people. We need to figure out what that is and bottle it up and let's do it.
Well, let's just pray, Bobby, and that we have the fortitude and the courage to continue, because we have a lot that we have to overcome now.
Yes.
Because of what we did in 2020, because of what's happening. And there's still, in the state legislature right now, like I said, my friend that won, she just was able to be seated in January, but the kinds of things that are going on, behind closed doors, because, we are a Republican-led state all the way. And every time you look around, there's some bill that's being introduced to put another obstacle in the way. So let's just see, as I said before, this is a critical time for us nationwide, but definitely here in the state of Georgia.
Well, let's wrap it up. Let's spend, if you will, let's close. Ms. Berry, if you can give us some hope in a 30 to 45 minute spiel, what would it sound like?
You have to unmute her. Unmute yourself.
Okay. I'll send one that, as dismal as it sounds, I'm not giving up on us, because I know where we came from. I know what we have endured, and I know what we are capable of. And I'm just gonna hang in there. I'm not gonna be the county chair next term, but I'll be out here doing something. You can rest assured there. And I have confidence in the other county chairs, regardless of their ethnicity. We have meetings every Tuesday where we talk about this, share ideas, and now we have really started working across our county lines and to help each other. We'll get there. Just don't give up. Just don't give up.
Okay. Sister Jane?
Well, I say the same thing. We cannot give up. What we have to do now is to look at these obstacles. We got to go back and think about the Mamie George Williams and all of those persons even before her. And we just have to keep the faith. But like I tell anybody, whenever I speak or when the Savannah Tribune, when we have our web sessions on voting and all of that, and we look at all of these obstacles and the way that the lines are drawn and the bill and everything else, we keep the faith, but we got to do the work because faith without works, what does it say?
It's dead.
It's just dead. But we have to keep the hope, because when you look at our people, we have come through so much. over these 200 plus years,
Mhm.
that we can't let them down.
Mhm.
And we have to, as I said before, and it just motivated me when I read about Mamie George Williams, and basically with the editor of the Savannah Tribune said upon her death, called her the Esther of her time.
Mhm.
So Sharon, you're an Esther. I'm going to be an Esther. Okay. And we just have work to do. We got to do it. We cannot give up. Perry, you're going to share with us how we need to look at these numbers. Okay.
Exactly.
I mean, but everything that we have a lot going on for ourselves, we just got to share it with each other.
Yeah.
And we got to use it, and we got to support each other. I got to support you in Texas, Sharon. You got to support us here in Chatham County. So at least let's keep this line of communication open with each other so we can support each other. And we just got to we got to do the work. We got to do it. We got to do it. And that's all I have to say. We just have to do it. It's our time.
Mr.
To my two Esthers, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies, for all you do. I don't know. Not many people know this broadcast started around voting. The 2-minute warning was an idea that we were leading up to the 2020 election and that we were in the last 2 minutes of voting. That's how we started. To come full circle and see that we're still dealing with these issues. Miss James Sharon can tell you, you don't have to worry. I will bug you to death and Bobby will tell you I keep talking to you about data until you begin to see data. But again, that's what I say. Why should I have that skill and not really invest it into my people? We're not talking, and again, it's not about pay, and then it is. But we have to learn, and that's really my focus in this, to understand the value of networks. And it's not just who I know; it's the people who I know who know people who know people. And we have got to begin to use that to our advantage, because I'm seeing we are facing the same thing in different places. And we all feel like it's just us here. And we know it to be different. And we know it. And here's the last thing I want to end with. We talk about the black vote, but for the fifth, dating back to 2008, we have exceeded in black voter turnout in every major election. They tried to tell us in 2016 that it was the black turnout, but it wasn't. It was our percentages went down in terms of voter turnout, but we turned out close to 16 million black voters. The problem gets a little bit dicier because now we have to understand how to use that to our advantage, even in this spliced up system. And where it starts at, I think locally, is that a lot of us are losing on the local level in terms of our leadership, because studies have shown that when local elections are not tied to some statewide or federal election, the turnout is dismal. And when we look at our local elections, even now our state elections, we have leaders now that are being elected with under 20% voter turnout. So again, I'm telling you, those aren't leaders. We're dealing with people out front, and we need to put them to the back.
Very good. Okay. All right. Ariel, can you bring up those last two comments? Okay. Here we go. Yeah. Brother Wright says the political struggle will always be with us. Let's take the Georgia's handbook and everybody run with it. Grassroots voter education and application is a must. God bless to all. And there was one other one from T.P. Buckner, and she said, there she go. We all have to be Esthers. Let me say happy belated birthday to T.P. Buckner. I missed your birthday yesterday, Tammy, and we apologize, but happy birthday. And in from the Bible, from the book of Esther, when Mordecai, her uncle, came to her, and said, for such a time as this. So the question that I think we got to ask ourselves and each other is, are we willing to die to vote? And that is a serious question. If we say yes to that, then there is nothing that would stop us from doing what we're supposed to do. And I want to leave us with a song that may bring some peace. Yeah. Georgia. Yeah. Georgia. Yeah. The whole thing. Yeah. Just an old sweet song. Yeah. Keep Georgia on my mind. I said, Georgia. Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah. Yeah.